I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I have a new girlfriend, and I'm going to live with her. I'm divorcing you, and you need to go to my parents' place, my husband said, his voice cold and final. My heart dropped. We'd been married for over a year, and now, out of nowhere, he was telling me it was over. I was stunned, unable to comprehend the words coming out of his mouth. I don't understand what you're saying, I whispered, hoping he'd say it was a joke, but it wasn't. He looked at me with impatience. I don't need you anymore. You can either stay at my parents' house and be a breadwinner or a housekeeper. It's up to you. His words were harsh, and they cut deep. I felt like the floor had been pulled out from under me. How had it come to this? My name is Julianne, and I am a 35-year-old office worker. I've spent my entire life working hard. After graduating from college, I started working at a major company and have been there for about 13 years. My dedication paid off. I'm now a department manager, which is a significant achievement at my age. I've been blessed with a great boss and a team of talented subordinates who respect me. My work life was fulfilling and gave me a sense of accomplishment. But my personal life, that was a different story. I've only had one serious relationship before getting married. It was during my college years, and since then, I'd been too focused on my career to date seriously. A good friend of mine noticed how lonely I was and decided to set me up at a dinner party. That's where I met Jake. He was charming, with a kind smile that made me feel at ease. We were the same age, and it didn't take long for us to hit it off. We had a lot in common and started hanging out more often, just the two of us. Eventually, Jake confessed his feelings for me, and we began dating. Our relationship blossomed quickly. Jake was everything I had ever wanted in a partner. He was sweet, attentive, and seemed genuinely interested in building a life with me. After some time, he proposed, and I eagerly accepted. We got married, and I was on cloud nine. I couldn't believe I was lucky enough to marry the man I loved. After the wedding, Jake took me to meet his parents. They were incredibly kind, welcoming me into their home with open arms. Julianne, it's so nice to finally meet you. I can't believe our son brought home such a beautiful bride, his mother said, tears of joy in her eyes. We're so proud of Jake for finding someone like you. Mom, Dad, stop it, Jake laughed. You're making Julianne nervous. But his parents were so warm and friendly, just like Jake. They were genuinely happy for us, and I was relieved. I'd heard horror stories from friends about their in-laws pressuring them to quit their jobs, but Jake's parents were different. They respected my career and even encouraged me to continue working. You have a good job at a good company. It's better that you keep working, his father had said, and I was grateful. With their blessing, we got married and started our new life together. Jake moved into my house, and I was thrilled to have him by my side every day. I loved our life together, the simple joys of sharing a meal or coming home to him after work. For 8 months, everything seemed perfect. But then, one evening, Jake dropped a bombshell. If you don't mind, I'd like us to live with my parents, he said out of the blue. Live with your parents? What do you mean? I asked, surprised. They're getting old and I'm worried about them. I think it would be best if we all lived together so I can take care of them, he explained. I could understand his concern. My own parents were around the same age, but they had my brother and his wife living with them, so I didn't have to worry as much. Jake, however, was an only child. It made sense that he'd want to look after his parents. So, we'd be living with them full-time, I asked, trying to wrap my head around the idea. Yes, but we could renovate their house to make it a 2-family home. That way, we'd have our own space and it would be less stressful for everyone, Jake suggested. It was an attractive idea. His parents were kind people, and with separate living spaces, it wouldn't be too intrusive. That sounds like a good plan, I agreed, relieved to see how happy the idea made Jake. We soon began discussing the renovation in detail. The cost would be around $200,000, which was a significant amount, but manageable. However, during one of these discussions, Jake made a surprising request. Actually, Julianne, I have a favor to ask, he said, looking uncomfortable. Can you pay for the remodeling? I was taken aback. Pay for the remodeling? The full amount? Yes, he admitted, avoiding my gaze. Why? I asked, feeling a sense of unease. Jake hesitated before confessing. We're in debt. My parents and I owe about $250,000. The number shocked me. How could you owe so much? Why didn't you tell me? Jake looked ashamed. It started small, but it grew over time. My parents are living on a pension now, and I don't make enough to cover it. I need your help, Julianne. Please. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. We'd been married for less than a year, and now I was finding out that my husband and his parents were drowning in debt. I felt betrayed, deceived even, but I loved Jake, and he seemed so desperate. Against my better judgment, I agreed to help. Okay, I'll pay for it, I said, feeling a knot in my stomach. Jake's relief was palpable. Thank you so much, Julianne, he said, shaking my hand like we'd just closed a business deal. He immediately told his parents, who were overjoyed. They came over to thank me personally, his mother even crying tears of gratitude. Despite my growing doubts, I felt compelled to help them. I couldn't turn my back on my husband or his family. To make the payments manageable, I decided to use $60,000 from my savings and pay the rest in installments. Jake's parents agreed to this plan, and I began the process of paying off their debt. As the months passed, I threw myself into work, determined to pay off the debt as quickly as possible. We also completed the renovations, turning their house into a beautiful two-family home. Living together in the renovated house, everything seemed perfect on the surface. My in-laws were happy, and Jake seemed content. But something bothered me. Despite his earlier promises, Jake never contributed to paying off the debt. Whenever I asked him about it, he would make excuses about his low salary and refuse to show me his pay stubs. It was suspicious, but I didn't press him, not wanting to cause a rift. A year passed, and I managed to pay off $60,000 of the debt. One day, my in-laws asked me how much was left to repay. When I told them there was still $180,000 remaining, they were shocked. You've paid back that much already? Julianne, you're amazing, they exclaimed, genuinely surprised at how much progress I'd made. But their praise didn't bring me any comfort. I was beginning to feel more like a bank than a wife. The whole situation left me feeling uneasy, but I kept pushing forward, determined to get through it. Then, one evening, something happened that changed everything. I had to work late, so I texted Jake to let him know I'd be home late. However, the work finished earlier than expected, and I decided to surprise him by coming home and cooking dinner. As I walked through the door, I noticed my in-laws' shoes by the entrance. Curious, I quietly walked towards the living room, where I could hear them talking. You were right to marry that woman, Jake, I heard my father-in-law say. You did great. I can't believe you got a woman with that much money. When I found out she worked for a big company, I knew I had to be careful and make her fall for me, Jake responded, laughing. You should be more grateful. She's paid off so much of our debt already. I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest. They were talking about me like I was some kind of cash cow. How much did you spend on horse racing? Jake's father asked. Your gambling is terrible. It's not that bad, Jake shrugged. Sometimes we win big. But anyway, once she finishes paying off the debt, I'm dumping her. I've already got a new girlfriend lined up. My heart shattered into a million pieces. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The man I loved, the man I thought loved me, was planning to throw me away like I was nothing. I had sacrificed so much for him and his family, and this was how they repaid me? By using me? I slowly backed away, trying to hold back the tears. I needed to get out of there before they noticed me. But as I turned to leave, I accidentally knocked over a vase by the door. The loud crash startled everyone, and I quickly called out, I'm home, trying to sound normal. Jake and his parents rushed to greet me, their faces painted with fake smiles. Oh, Julianne, welcome home. We didn't expect you so early, Jake said, his voice dripping with false cheer. I forced a smile, pretending not to have heard their conversation. I finished work earlier than expected, so I thought I'd come home and cook dinner. For the rest of the evening, I played the role of the unsuspecting wife, all while my heart was breaking inside. When Jake went to take a bath, I locked myself in my room and let the tears flow. I cried until there were no more tears left, and in the silence that followed, a plan began to form in my mind. I was going to get back at Jake and his parents for what they had done to me. Over the next few months, I pretended everything was normal. I continued paying off the debt, playing the dutiful wife, all the while preparing for my escape. I consulted with a lawyer, gathered evidence, and made plans to leave Jake once the time was right. Finally, the day arrived. I had just made the final payment on the debt, and I knew it was time. "Jake," I said one evening after dinner, "I've paid off the debt. Your parents are finally free from their burden." Jake's eyes widened in surprise. "You paid off the debt? All of it?" "Yes," I replied, showing him the bank statements as proof. "I wanted to get it over with, so I used some of my savings to pay it off in full." Jake looked at the statements, his excitement barely contained. "Julianne, thank you. My parents are going to be so happy," he exclaimed, rushing to call them. A few days later, Jake came to me with a serious expression on his face. "Julianne, we need to talk," he said, trying to look solemn. "What is it?" I asked, feigning concern. "I'm sorry, but I've met someone else. I want a divorce. You can go stay with my parents if you want," he said, not even bothering to look me in the eye. I pretended to be shocked. "What? You're leaving me for someone else? After everything I've done for you?" Jake sighed, as if he was the one being wronged. "I'm sorry, Julianne, but I just don't love you anymore." At that moment, his parents walked in, clearly in on the plan. "Jake told you, right? You can come live with us, but you'll have to pay rent and do all the chores," his mother said, her voice dripping with condescension. I looked at them, all of them, and I couldn't help but smile. "Actually, I'm not going anywhere," I said calmly. "What do you mean?" Jake asked, his brow furrowing in confusion. "I mean, this house belongs to me. The title is in my name. You and your parents have no claim to it," I replied, watching as their expressions turned from confusion to horror. But you paid off our debt. You're the one who's out all that money," Jake stammered, his face pale. "No, I didn't. I only made it look like I did. The debt is still there, and it's still your responsibility," I said, my voice cold. "And since you've admitted to infidelity, I'll be seeking alimony from you and your new girlfriend. As for your parents, they'll be paying me back the $120,000 I spent on their behalf." Jake's parents looked like they were about to faint. "You can't do this," his father yelled. "Oh, but I can, and I will. My lawyer will be in touch," I said, turning to leave the room. Over the next few months, I followed through with my plan. I sold the house for a profit, paid off the remaining debt, and walked away with $80,000 in profit. Jake and his parents were left with nothing. I took them to court and won alimony from both Jake and his girlfriend, as well as repayment of the $120,000 from his parents. In the end, I came out on top. I had turned their betrayal into an opportunity for growth. I used the money I earned to invest in my future, taking courses on financial management and investing in various assets. My career flourished, and I was able to retire early, living a life of comfort and happiness. Looking back, I realized that their betrayal was a blessing in disguise. It taught me to be stronger, wiser, and more self-reliant. I learned the importance of surrounding myself with people who genuinely cared about me, and I built a life full of love and trust. Now, as I sit in my beautiful home, surrounded by friends and family who truly love me, I know that I made the right choices. I've turned a painful experience into a story of empowerment and success, and that, to me, is the best revenge.